This is Take Two.
I think the reason why I stuck to like in-person ones were more just because I didn't niche down. So there was that concept of like, it's about the conversation and the people and all that kind of stuff. Also, there came a point, I don't know if you ever had it, where people's Wi-Fi connections, man.
Yeah, I'm experiencing that a lot lately. I keep interviewing people that live in the woods. I don't know if that's
Fair
what
enough.
that says about my audience, but
Yeah, but like it makes sense because philosophy, but like...
yeah, they're weird, but they have terrible internet connections.
And it's like they just carry on with it. It's like they're used to it. Yeah, no, it's fine. I'm like, mate, how the fuck am I supposed to upload this?
It's impossible. But,
Literally. Full-on videos, pixels,
yep.
delay, just and there came a
gone.
point where I was like, mate, you know what, like fuck it. And then I also think the quality of the conversation.
Yeah.
So it's like you get to meet the person, you shake their hand, you chat a little bit, you know, that sort of stuff, versus online was very much like, okay, here we go.
Yeah. Here's two robots
Here
on
it
a
is.
screen.
Hi.
Like, yeah, there's kind of a time delay as well with the weird
Time
kind of
delay.
like, you almost speak in like longer sentences. You have a bit and then you let the other person speak, and there's this kind of, it's not like human in a way.
Yeah, like you can't interrupt them
No.
without...
You can't go, what the fuck?
What the fuck are you on about?
Sorry, I
Yeah,
don't know if
were you
can
about to say
swear, but-
something? No.
Yeah.
But yeah. Anyways, how's the podcast going? I see that you've been
The
bringing it
podcast
on.
is good, yeah.
Yeah.
I've been mainly talking to a lot of philosophy people in a kind of part of the web called This Little Corner of the Internet. I don't know if you're into it.
No.
This guy called John Vervaeke, he did a series called Awakening from the Meaning Crisis, which was kind of like a flagship series. I think it's been watched like millions of times at this point.
Yeah.
But a lot of people kind of formed around his kind of work, and then also like Jordan Peterson kind of crowd, like online kind of philosophy stuff. But people that are apolitical and aren't really into that kind of side of stuff, but just want the solving the meaning crisis, like getting more meaning in life,
Without being
wisdom,
polarizing.
without polarizing, without the
Yeah.
politics, that are more focused on helping people live a better life, which is, I think, is the appeal of a lot of that stuff, because people are suffering, people feel like
Yeah.
you know, their lives are meaningless, like there's a big void, I think, for a lot of people. So I'm trying to create like conversations around that and introduce people that I think are interesting, that are working on that stuff, and create a space for people to actually like plug into that, because I think only on the internet, that's the only place that is, like
Exactly.
they call it the wisdom web. In some places, which is,
I like that.
yeah, it's kind of cool, a bit cringy, but like,
yeah. But like it makes you like
and
smile
there is,
and
I mean,
nod
there's
your
weird
head.
stuff going on there. There's people doing crazy
Oh my
kind of
God.
things, but
Yeah. Like you go
like,
down a deep rabbit
the
hole.
line between like wisdom commons and wisdom cult is pretty fine sometimes, so you got to be careful out there. But I think there's like it, even like conversations like this, it's good for people to be discussing these things and voicing them to other people, because we're all very isolated. We're all in this digital world, you know, creating opportunities to connect. That's what
And then
podcasting
it's
is
like exactly, and it's also just what is connecting. I feel like I've expressed it a lot recently. I feel like every year there came a point in the podcast where I had quite a interesting relationship with short form content on social media, but I feel like right now is significantly worse, dare I say. My accent nearly came out over there. Worse, dare I say, than last year, where this time round, especially on TikTok, Instagram is like a hit or miss, really. If something is negative or slightly polarizing, or sometimes I wouldn't even know, but it is polarizing at all, just like a straight up maybe opinion or fact, it hit, like you're talking
Does so
hundreds
much
of
better.
thousands of views. Like it goes out of hand of just like the moment that someone complains,
Yep.
it gets really fucking bad, man.
Yeah.
Like, and all the positive stuff, the mental health, the curious ones, the nuances, stuck. They're
Yeah,
completely
the best. I
stuck.
spoke to a guy. He's the professor of law at the University of Texas. He wrote a book called The Socratic Method. A guy called Ward Farnsworth, but he use the example of like in Rome, they built these aqueducts to bring water into the cities, but the aqueducts got lead in them and started bringing lead into cities, and people got lead poisoning, and it made them really aggressive and crazy, basically. And some people argue it contributed to the fall of Rome, but he uses that analogy for social media, which is that it's this great communication technology. You know, we can share stuff with each other, but that the lead in the water is the business model. Like, I've been reading papers, that's what I'm doing in my PhD, is the ethical issues of the business model of social media. And that's one of the main problems, is that it's incentivized for moral content, for emotional content, and for out-group animosity. So if you attack somebody in a tweet, it does 20% better than if you don't. For every moral or emotional word you use, it gets shared more likely. And the problem is, because it's optimized for attention, it's trying to catch people's attention. But our attention isn't really, necessarily doesn't go to good stuff. Oftentimes it's like car crash or drama or, big problems and crises. So the technology is optimized for that. So stuff that's, disastrous or that's trying to spread fear, anger. The only positive emotion really is awe or humor, which is kind of good. But that's what things like TikTok and Instagram are optimized for. So there's a reason that does better. Basically, that's the business model.
And this was so surprising to me because I don't know. Sometimes you go like, okay, this one is a little bit like a hit or miss. I'm gonna upload and like avoid my phone for a good few hours. But I think what was catching me off guard were the ones where I was like, oh yeah, this will help people, and it's like, fuck man. Like
this didn't help.
This didn't help at all.
Yeah.
And I'm starting to see it on. I know that, like, sometimes you do get stuck in a little bit of a comparison loop and all. It's natural, I know. So I'm not trying to beat myself up over it. But before I was like, what the fuck is happening? Like, why is it only happening to me? Like, why are people kissing someone's ass for saying the same content that I was saying or having the same conversation? But now I'm starting to see it in other people, but in other people's like comment sections, I mean. But the thing that I found most fascinating was, first of all, how many people comfortably comment negative shit. It's like, I'm no angel, but how do you feel comfortable knowing that like your neighbor could actually just see your hate comments? Like, I wonder if people's comments could, because there's on the business model type things, it's not that I am someone, but I think if you were to publish like on someone's social media section, posts, comments, and see whatever the fuck they comment, that's the first one. People would be a lot more sly.
To their name. Yeah, and
exactly.
I mean, you don't know how many people are fake or how many people are bots, and like that was a big thing on Twitter, that was like hundreds of thousands of them were just fake, like a massive amount of it. So people were having fights with robots, like fully, and with ChatGPT and all that stuff. Like, ChatGPT, a lot of it's being automated as well. That was the big thing with like because like the first wave of AI that came was on social media, which was filtering AI or organizing AI. So it's organizing all the content on social media so people can look at it and sort through what's relevant and what's not relevant. But then the next wave is generative AI, where you can create things like the images, like the text or the large language models, and then all that's going to be uploaded to social media. And so you don't really know if you're dealing with real people, if you're dealing with fake people. There was obviously the Russians were caught during the 2016 presidential election putting out like 100,000 presidential messages or whatever that they did, and you're like, what is even real anymore? It's so I'd be pretty skeptical of people commenting online that you're like, who the hell is this? Like,
like, who are you? You're either a very angry 14-year-old boy,
or maybe they haven't had their lunch. You know what I mean? How many people are hangry that are just giving out on the internet, and we're like, God, do they really think this? And they're just like, needed a sandwich or something.
Like, fuck off. Just like get the Snickers bar or something.
Get off the computer.
And then I also used to think that like a good solution would be removing the like button on comments, because I feel like sometimes the comment section ends up being, that's the one observation I get, people keep saying the same thing
just to get likes,
and it's like one day maybe I will get 1,000 likes on my main comment, because that would make me feel better, and
it incentivizes people to compete for who can say the most
sad.
popular shit. Yeah, definitely. I mean, every little thing that they change on social media creates a new kind of race or a new game for social status, for popularity. I'm going to do some videos at some point on like how I frame social media now after all the research that I've done, and like how to think about it, because it's super manipulative and it's designed to make you feel uncomfortable, really, because you feeling uncomfortable, you use it more to try and feel better, like any drug. Like most of it's gambling technology. If people are interested in it, I mean, the Social Dilemma, Tristan Harris, the Center for Humane Technology, they have a thing called the Ledger of Harms, whereby they've gathered together like all the literature on social media, all the different research on mental health problems, on loneliness, on anxiety, on eating disorders in girls, then the political stuff of like polarization, of misinformation, like all of it together in one place, and you can kind of start to see like, wow, okay, there's a lot going on here that is so to kind of detach yourself from it a little bit, because it's designed to suck you in,
Literally.
so you use it more.
And like, what's your relationship with social media right now?
I use it for the podcast and for business. I use Instagram, to be fair. I deleted Facebook. Don't have Twitter or TikTok. Instagram's a bit of it's just unfortunate that I started using that, so I use that to build up for the podcast anyway. Mainly I've switched to Substack. So Substack is pretty sick. Like it's email marketing. So you send it to people's emails rather than having like a news feed, and a kind of it's more peer-to-peer rather than a social media.
And you get
platform.
feedback on it? Or?
Yeah, people email you and they can like stuff and share stuff as well, kind of similarly.
Interesting.
And you get stats on it and analytics and things, because I suppose it's different for me or for yourself, like uploading stuff and creating things versus just being a user of social media where you just want to see what your friends are doing. It's really network effects, man. Like where everybody is, you kind of have to go to a certain extent. And obviously I'm on YouTube as well with the YouTube channel.
Yeah, the Oobly Tubes.
The Oobly Tubes is sometimes good, sometimes bad.
Oh my God.
I love YouTube. Like I've always loved YouTube. I've grown up just watching so much nonsense on there, and I've really enjoyed it. But there is just a downside to.
It's a tough one. I think when you're doing it alone, it's like, ideally you're creating. I see the fluff on your shoe. Get the fluff on your shoe.
Oh my God!
It could be my hair, to be honest. Like I wouldn't be surprised.
Is this coming with?
I was like, are you looking at the fluff on your shoe? Like,
incredible.
Guys, sorry about that.
I'll have to edit this out in post.
Were you looking at the fluff on your shoe?
No, I couldn't actually see it.
I'm so sorry. That's so rude of me, man.
No, I'm glad you told me.
Okay. You have like a
I
fluffy.
just went on with this stuff.
He had a dust
Trying to
bunny
talk
on
about
his
serious
shoe.
things here. God damn it.
That's what I thought you were looking down at. Okay.
Yeah, no, I couldn't say.
Anyways, so back to the serious shit.
Saving the world.
So it's so annoying, right, when it comes to social media, that if you want to do it really well, ideally you're eat, sleep, breathing one platform at a time across everything. So you're creating content for YouTube, separately, Instagram, TikTok, yada yada.
No, and not repeating the same stuff on each
and
one,
we're
right?
like in the repurpose
because
sphere. It's like there's only so much, man.
You only have so much brain capacity, and you don't want to burn yourself out as well trying to do.
You went down to like
things.
bi-weekly podcasts, right?
Yep. Yeah, I do bi-weekly, and then I do an essay. So I do like 2 essays, 2 podcasts a month.
Okay.
I do audio essays as well, so it's kind of like a podcast, but just means I do less interviews, so it's a bit more manageable.
Scheduling.
Yep.
Fucking hell. So let's talk a little bit about PhD, like for someone who's toying with the idea.
Yeah, okay.
So first of all, do you drink caffeine?
I drink way more caffeine than I ever have in my life.
If you
just
told
to
me
wake
that,
up,
like, oh no, I don't drink coffee. Like,
no, I drink.
Yeah.
No, I definitely have a cup of coffee in the morning, possibly one at lunch.
Yeah.
Just to survive and keep going.
Are you just at your desk non-stop?
Yeah. But obviously I do a lot of other writing as well, and so PhD work for most of the day, which is just writing papers. And then my other writing, the essays, play that I'm doing, all that kind of stuff. So it's good for there's a certain amount of freedom with a PhD, which is useful.
I did not know that.
But also, it's all on you.
Yeah.
There's nobody else. So like, there was a bank holiday there Monday. No bank holiday for me.
Yeah.
Because if I don't do it, Nobody does. I got COVID there after Christmas.
No way.
I was like,
That's
this would
so
be
lame that you
this
got
would
it
be
now,
great.
though.
Like I'd have a nice week off, chill. But I had to work. I can't, like,
You're just
there's nobody else there.
Yeah,
like, you know what I mean?
because then you'll feel guilty that you got a
You're
whole
just like-
week of not leaving the house. At least I read, or
If it doesn't get done, like I'm to blame. So
just sneeze on your laptop. Anyways, I basically said that it's a bit lame that you got COVID now. You missed
so
it.
really. I mean, I got that season 1 COVID as well.
Did
To
ya?
be fair, yeah.
Okay.
That was the real stuff. But
How did that feel?
oh, pretty bad. Like it was not that fun. I did for the play that I'm doing. I did a fundraiser as well where I got a monk haircut. The people paid me to get like a tonsure where I like shaved the top and the sides.
Okay.
And then I got COVID when I had that, so I was like, what if I have to go to hospital and I have this monk haircut? And like they just laughed me out of the place. So I basically just hid in the house for
In serious
several weeks.
patients only, please.
Yeah, they were just like,
I'm like,
"This
wait
guy's
a
lost
sec,
his
I need to
mind."
like get rid of everything before they take me in.
Yeah, it looked like I was being sectioned, but
Gas. Oh,
yeah, so not so good. But PhD, I mean, I think PhD is a means to an end for sure. Like, there's probably too many going on. Like, you can do it. You know, there's millions of them, and the only reason I'm doing it is because I care about the topic and I want to lecture eventually. So
yeah, that's the goal, man.
yeah, to be able to, and this is my own topic. Like, I didn't have to choose it took me 2.5 years to get funding for it.
Wow.
So I got the School of Theology and Philosophy scholarship in DCU for 22. But that was after 2.5 years of like trying to get funding basically to do the project.
Is there an actual application process where you could be denied your PhD?
Yeah, definitely.
ground?
The Irish Research Council, I mean, are the primary source of funding for
Wow.
PhDs, and they're very hard to get into. Like, very, very difficult. It's very competitive. Like,
So then do these people just fund their own PhD if they don't get in?
not necessarily. I mean, people would try. Maybe there's European funds, or
Wow.
universities put out calls for researchers that they need for certain things, but that way you're signing up to a research project. So if you want to do your own one, there's pretty limited ways of doing it, unless you get support from the university or IRC or
Wow.
European maybe.
So it's basically like every PhD needs to be somewhat approved and funded?
Yes, yeah, definitely. Unless, I mean, you could pay for it yourself, but it'd probably be like 40 grand a year or something. Like, it would be really expensive.
What?
So yeah,
Wow.
I'm sure people do
Yeah,
that
they
while
do
they're
that.
working maybe and do it part time, but 8 years is a long time.
Yeah. And how scared are you of the Viva?
It's so far away at this point. I even
Terrifying.
forgot it existed.
Oh
until
my God. That's
right
the
now.
one thing that is
Yeah.
like fully stopping me from
Really,
fully.
just the showdown of the academic higher council.
The confrontation
Yeah.
of like just my work being put up for debate.
Yeah.
Literally, I don't, my ego can't take it.
I don't know. I'm
Genuinely.
well used to that, man. As a writer, people just rip a new one from you
Yeah,
all of the time.
that's what I was
you
going to
know?
ask you actually.
It's basically the job, like.
Yeah. When it
Unfortunately.
comes to writing, what is, not even what is that like? Because I've been I've been eyeing the industry just because I always loved writing. I've never loved writing enough to do it consistently, if that makes sense.
Yeah.
But I'm not saying that that is as if I don't care about it enough. It's just like I have so much on my plate, man.
Fair.
But yeah, like let's talk a little bit about writing.
For sure.
So obviously you've been doing it for a long time.
I've been writing for 10 years. Oh, well, I mean, I was
Yeah,
writing
like
in
properly.
school as a kid. But,
I've written essays.
yeah, I started writing as a child.
Yeah, I
suppose.
wrote a haiku in primary.
Yeah, when I was 4 or whatever.
Gas.
But I started writing, properly kind of probably in college, just like start of college. I was drinking too much and partying and melted my brains. So I started reading again, and then the reading kind of inspired me to start writing my own kind of stuff, to do stories and poetry at the start. And then I made a collection of short stories, which was published in 2020. And then I did a master's basically in creative writing, which was actually
Part of the
amazing.
fucking parcel, yeah.
Yeah, it was really good. Like,
Yeah.
'cause some people are kind of skeptical about like you shouldn't do a master's or something in creative writing, or like are skeptical about education in creative writing. But my experience was that it was really, really good. Like, you learn kind of story structure and the craft and technique of it, and meet a lot of people as well. And that's where I started writing plays, and I did wrote a TV show about the Countess Markovich, written some screenplays, a radio play that was produced by the Seamus Heaney Centre in Belfast. And then I've done some other kind of digital work as well, like some 3D soundscapes and also like a virtual reality thing of Belfast mixed with GTA called The Estate, which is pretty cool. So I've been writing for a long time now, and it's really... I think writing is like an essential skill. Like everybody should do it, man. I think it's part of like your self-discovery and yourself learning about yourself it's just thinking, like it's really concentrated thinking, of putting things on a page and making it real.
You touched on the rejection aspect of writing.
Oh yeah.
Yeah, exactly.
That's most of the job.
Like, let's go after the master's degree where obviously you had lecturers criticizing your work.
Oh yeah.
What does that entail? Do you just... Is the rejection the submission, or are there certain like workshops and peer groups where they're like,
so you'd read out your work, like I remember one of the first day they asked for a load of sweaty kind of new people in a room to read out our work to each other, and we each had to kind of stand up and read out what we had. I don't really mind that, to be honest, because my attitude is that I want the best piece of work possible.
Yeah.
So it has to be, tested. And if people say, this is terrible, this sucks, you're an idiot, this is so weird, what are you doing? Like, they're all things that I learn about it from the process. So I was always fairly positive about, but some people can be weird and it's like their baby kind of thing, and you're too attached to it. But that could get in the way of you producing really good quality work. So I think you have to kind of detach yourself from your work to a certain extent. Even like the play, which we were doing a rehearsal in the new theatre, and obviously you read it out loud in front of the whole team and directors and a dramaturg and the head of the new theatre as well and everything, and some bits are landing, some bits aren't landing. Sometimes you write something you think is funny and then everybody just goes, what are you doing? Like, this makes no sense, and you just have to go, okay, well, fine, I'll change it, I'll take it out. You get a bit more thick-skinned about it, but probably like anything, like podcasting, you develop an artistic eye for what you like and what you don't like.
Exactly. And when it comes to just like the writing space per se, if you're not submitting certain things, if let's say it's non-fiction, right?
Yeah.
Besides like writing out, first of all, I completely agree with you, because in your head, when you're when you're writing and then reading your work, it sounds perfect. The moment that you literally read this out loud, you're like, what the fuck is wrong with it? Like, what?
Got that dyslexia.
Yeah. And then like you bring someone on and you're just like, do I speak England right now? So you've got that. But are there like workshops? Are there like spheres?
There's tons of, the Irish Writer Centre is very good. There's a lot of online kind of stuff as well that you can do. For me, I think the most important thing is just to start writing. Like, you need to develop a writing habit, because writing is really scary. So when you sit down, you look at a blank page, you kind of freak out a little bit, and you need to get over that as quickly as possible. So it has to be kind of a habit. For some people, it might be like journaling in the morning, journaling in the evening. It might be an overall project that they're working on, but I think just doing it for a set amount of time every day is the first step, really. And then you take what you write something that's terrible, and then you start to edit, and you develop that kind of creating brain, editing brain, because they're kind of separate things. And then sharing it with other people, like giving it to a friend, giving it to somebody to read, seeing what they like, what they don't like.
Yeah, that's the vulnerable bit, eh?
Yes, very difficult. At first, I didn't tell anybody that I was writing. It was almost like I was coming out of the closet or something to my friends. I was like...
You go and give them a letter and they're
my mates would be like, you're writing? What the fuck are you talking about? Like, writing what? Like, you know what I mean? My friends wouldn't have been the most accepting of people at the time. But it was... Like, I just kept it a secret for years. Like, it wouldn't tell anybody about any of it. A couple of maybe close friends.
It's always poetry that people start off with.
I mean, everybody's got a bad book of poetry lying around somewhere, like, that should never see the light of day. But I think it was really important for me, like, at that time where I was kind of going through a lot of stuff. I was in college and just very self-destructive and trying to figure out, who I was and become an adult. And the writing really guided me through that process. It gave me something where I could really express what I was saying, and then it made it easier to tell other people and to talk about things and to say, if somebody asked me a question about something, like, I knew I could articulate myself better because of my examination of myself through writing.
Like that self-reflection And
really concentrated self-reflection.
literally, that's it. 100%. And let's talk a little bit about adulthood now versus what, like, not even the teenage life, but like young or early adulthood, because Ireland is very interesting when it comes to that, where it's like going out to college and you're immediately thrown into the only point in time where you can have fun and not feel alone is drink and drugs.
Yeah.
It's so interesting because I was giving, not even advice, but I was hearing it recently and I was like, but you have a choice. You know that you don't need to go out, right? And the response given back to me was like, yeah, but that means that I'm home alone instead. And I want to be with my friends. And that's the only way that it can be done.
So you go drinking.
Exactly, that's it.
Yeah.
And it's so strange because I feel like the way we talk about peer pressure is always like someone trying to shove a drug down your throat. When in reality, it's also just kind of like, dare I say, pressuring yourself in, I don't want to be alone. I can't be alone right now. It's so heavy.
Yeah, and the drink feeds into that more, I think. Drink creates that feeling, a lot of anxiety and feelings of uncomfortableness, and it can perpetuate the whole cycle that it claims to kind of solve a lot of the time, which is the anxiety that people feel day to day. But college is a really weird time. I think it's a bad, I don't know if it's a bad idea in general, but
as you want to be a lecturer.
Kind of like transition year in school or something where you're given, it depends on the course you're doing, obviously, but you're kind of given free rein to do really stupid stuff, which is to a point good because you're mixing things up and you're trying stuff out. But I think it can become a bit of a free ride where you're just paying to go somewhere to have a fake identity for a while, and then when you get out, you're dreadfully unprepared for life and for anything else. That's why I think it's good people coming from outside Dublin to Dublin, because they actually move out and they live on their own. And like, I learned so much more from moving out after college than a lot of what I learned in college, to be honest, in terms of managing my life, organising myself, being responsible for things. In Dublin, because most of us live at home during college, and it just becomes a big party. Maybe not for everybody, but particularly in my case. And
the only time that you can escape from your parents is
that too. I mean, people don't really want to be at home at that age either. Like, there's the massive problem in Dublin, obviously, that's interrupting adulthood is for people is having a home and moving out and getting their own lives together. Because most of the time they have to leave Dublin in order to do that. Like, you can, I mean, it is possible to do it from your parents' house, I suppose, but I think it's a big obstacle to, like, where I live in Belfast, a lot of people buy houses at 20, 21.
No.
You know what I mean? They buy houses when they're really young. My girlfriend's bought a house now, and she can do it on her own up there, which she couldn't do in Dublin. And people can then kind of take on those next stages in their life. So I guess you just have to do it differently. But yeah.
And I think it's the contentness, like the level of content with, am I going to be okay actually spending that much amount of money on this little quality of life?
Yeah.
It's tough to address, but it is kind of true.
Yeah.
And I'm not saying that it's the issue right now. I know it's the issue worldwide, but considering the circumstances, it's like, it's not even about having one room with like 2 or 3 shitty like housemates. It's like a single bed with someone else living in your room for 600-700 euros. So I think there is that level, not to get too political, but there is that level of detachment of what like the reality is.
Yeah.
Recently I saw someone talking about how there's like rotations with the bed. Someone has a night shift.
Somebody gets the bed and then
Fully,
wow.
literally, like, let's say I'm a night nurse, right?
Yeah.
So you get the bed at night, and then when you're off for your day job,
like,
I go and fucking snuggle in your pillow. Like, what the fuck?
I feel like that'll get awkward. Like,
literally, like, what happens? But yeah, that's basically it. It's like the situation. But then, there's also that level of, I don't want to leave Dublin because where am I going to go?
Yeah.
Like,
I think it's also just the length of time it takes us to be educated now is so much longer than what it used to be. Like, our grandparent, like in the past, it would have been you got a BA degree and that would be fine and that's you done. But Now it's like, okay, a BA, and then you have to get a master's, and then
And you're
maybe you
not
have to go on, and
guaranteed.
you're not guaranteed to get a job
No.
out of it. So we spend, 23 years or whatever or more in an education system, and it's not very well adapted for life, for living a good life. There's no like stabilizing philosophy to it or anything. So you come out and you're still kind of developmentally at the stage you were in
Yes.
during the Leaving Cert or before the Leaving Cert,
Actually.
but you're supposed to have matured and become, you're an adult, technically
Yeah.
speaking. But I think for our society now, there's a big gap for like 18 to 25, 26 maybe. That's a really weird kind of liminal space, and there's no real guidance on like what you should be doing in that time. They talk about the quarter life crisis, where you come to a point you're like, I need an adult identity. Who am I going to be as an adult?
Yeah.
You know what I mean? I can't keep just working random jobs and having random relationships and just like moving country to country. And there's no real, there's not a huge amount of people talking about that, but I think people get caught in that trap. And that's where most young men commit suicide, is the ages of 18 to 24.
That's it.
And
And
it's
also,
that void. Like,
I think it's also the way that the wellness space or the motivational space is addressing the way you should pick your life together, where there is that extremity to it. It's like, if you're not waking up at 6 a.m., if you're not meditating, if you're not doing this, if you're not doing fucking that, and you're not jacked, then you're a loser. So I'm not saying that there's these lads. Obviously, it is in the women's, in the female space as well.
yeah.
But it's like this constant back and forth of, oh, I'm going to get my really shitty lifestyle and I'm going to immediately transition to this. And whoop-de-doo, after a whole week, I can't fucking keep up with it.
Yeah.
Therefore, I suck.
Yeah.
And it's so scary.
It's interesting. Do you know the Buddha had the same problem?
Did he?
Interestingly, that swing between hedonism and aestheticism that loads of people have now, which is that you're running from one pole to the other. You become
Monk
completely
mode.
hedonistic and
Yeah.
indulgent, and then you go, I need to sort myself out. So you go and you run, you become an ascetic, and you're only eating lettuce, and you're getting up at 3 a.m. and you're doing whatever else. But they're all just ways of trying to feel like you're living a good life, like you're trying to be a good person, but neither of them really deal with what it is to live a good life, or why, what that would be, or what a good person really is. They're ways of trying to fill that void, but they don't work. So that's why you have to keep shuffling
works on
between
social.
them. It works on social if social status is the end
Exactly.
goal, but
That's
social status is like slippery, you know what I mean? People like you one day, they don't like you another.
They're sharing your post with a six-pack on and all that, like you're my motivational
Yeah.
guru and all that, right?
Yeah.
And then
And it gets you in trouble. Like you
Yeah,
end
yeah,
up,
it does.
you become something that you imagine to be in the heads of other people, which is not a very good recipe for peace of mind, because you're just, you're constantly trying to mind read everybody else and anticipate what they're going to like, and then become that,
literally.
which is, pretty
And
unsustainable.
You know what the really funny thing of that is? That I'm sure you've noticed that, or maybe not, because it's mostly on TikTok. A lot of lads are now talking about steroid use. And it could be the content that like I'm being provided, but all of a sudden a lot of people are not just admitting to it, but are hopping on it. All of a sudden a bunch of lads are on testosterone.
Yeah.
Yesterday I was scrolling. Your man fully was like, I started steroids before I walked into the gym. And his back is like full of like back knee and all this stuff.
Yeah.
And it's like, mate,
It's kind of lazy, to be honest.
no, it's not even lazy. It's like, of course there's going to be problems, man. And it's a tough one because something really good of like admitting certain things has now become a fucking trend and normalized to the point of let me just give up my entire body and mental health for an aesthetic gym TikTok video. It's so sad.
Yeah,
It's
and
like
that's,
a
I
new-
mean, there's a bit of a conspiracy theory I have, which is that so on social media, everybody's competing to be like the people that are higher than them in their niche in the social status hierarchy. So like a slightly buff dude will follow loads of more buff dudes. He's trying to be like them. That's trying to be like another buff dude that looks like this other guy. But the people that are the most popular on social media are copying the algorithm. they're doing what's most successful on the algorithm. So the algorithm is pushing up certain bits of content, and then other people are trying to copy the person that's successful on it. But the real reason people are successful on it is because they're playing the algorithm. So if the algorithm's promoting guys that are bigger and bigger and bigger, guys are then copying the other guys on it, and you're getting this negative feedback cycle where people are, it's like self-harming, or like young girls with eating disorders where they're copying other girls with eating disorders, and it's spreading like a virus basically.
That's so scary.
So I think people, we live in the Wild West to a certain extent psychologically at the moment, because there's no regulation of these things. Kids, young people are exposed to so many influences of like what people should be, what people look like. And these are really ethical problems. Like, we need to think about, you know, what do you think a good person is, and what do you think a person should be? Because these kind of phases that you go through, it's like a good person should be really buff, and you're like, okay, I get really buff, and then you realize, oh yeah, that doesn't do it. Like, you know what I mean? I still feel empty inside. Literally. Like, there's still something missing. And then you try something else, and you go, okay, I'll go and try and get really fashionable or something. People go through all these phases of trying different things, but the reality is they're religious problems, they're spiritual problems, they're ethical problems, and no amount of muscles or fake tan or looking good will fill that void for you, unfortunately.
Mic drop. But with that, it comes, like, does balance even exist? Because obviously you need to try stuff in order to figure out whether or not this lifestyle suits you, if that makes sense.
Yep.
So we are always bouncing, maybe not from I think maybe the solution is not jumping from one extremity to the other immediately. I think there's this all or nothing mindset that is so like normalized nearly. It's like all or nothing. I'm an all or nothing person, man. That's it. So, but then, does balance exist? Is balance?
Yeah, I don't know. I think balance is hard to market. And I'm not, like, I naturally am not good at balance either. Like, I'm a real extremist. Like,
exactly.
I get really into stuff and just go over the top with it. Yeah. So, I mean, every virtue, and I suppose to talk about the ethical, like, every virtue is a mean between two extremes. So every virtue is, say, like you're talking about balance, like temperance, which is self-control, self-regulation. Then the extreme of temperance would be an excess, and then the lower bit of it would be a deficit. So even courage, like the extreme of courage would be recklessness, the deficit would be cowardness. So every virtue is like in between two extremes. So if you want to be a virtuous person or a good person, it's about, you can go to one side and you can go to the other side, but that's how you know where the middle is. Yeah, so we behave in extreme ways all the time, but the extreme tells you where the mean is. And through experience, through doing enough stupid stuff, you should kind of start to go, okay, well, I've done this. That didn't really work so good. And now I need to do this. And you start to then target the middle way. Like, the middle way obviously is in Buddhism. I'm talking about more Aristotelian virtue ethics, which is like, his whole thing is, I don't know if you know the myth of Daedalus and Icarus.
No.
So Daedalus was a great inventor. He made the labyrinth, in Crete, not too far from Malta, but where they imprisoned the Minotaur, and they had, so he built that, but then he was imprisoned there himself, and he escaped with his son Icarus by making a pair of wax wings that they were going to use to fly. And Daedalus said to Icarus, he said, look, if you fly too low, you're going to land in the sea. If you fly too high, your wings are going to burn off because of the sun. So he said, fly the middle way. But then Icarus went too high and his wings burned off and he crashed into the sea and died.
Loser.
Exactly. Dumbass. But he should have listened to Daedalus. That guy was smart. But that was the mythic origins of Aristotle's idea of the golden mean, which was that
the golden mean.
Every virtue is between two extremes. So our society that's just filled with excess and these kind of things there's enough excess for you to just end up in different excesses all of the time, but you have to kind of unplug yourself and start to think, maybe write as well, mightn't be a bad idea, to try and figure out where that golden mean is for you.
Yeah, and read Eudaimonia one day.
Read Eudaimonia, definitely. Aristotle's virtue ethics, or the Mahon McCann ethics is
I remember studying it for A-levels, but that would have been 10 years ago now. It's a long one. So a lot of books followed that after that. But yeah, No, man, it's super interesting. And as you said, with the balance and all that. Now,
Yep.
I'm going to bring it back a little bit because I know you touched on questioning what the good life is.
Yeah,
Really
that's
is.
Aristotle for sure. like.
Yeah. Carry on with that. Like, what actually is the good life?
Well, I mean, what I think the good life is and what you think the good life is might be
Very
different.
different.
There is an individual kind of part to it. So I wouldn't necessarily pitch any particular vision of the good life, but I would pitch that it's important for you to think about your vision of
And
the
what
good
are
life.
the questions you can ask?
The questions about what is a good life, I mean, you could think about what's important to you, what's of value, what's of most significant value. And oftentimes we're kind of, we might say we value one thing, but then we behave in a different way. So I might say I value, peace of mind, but I scroll on Instagram for 5 hours and give myself anxiety.
Yeah, or get into gossip.
Or get into gossip, or I look at negative comments and I stress myself out. So while I profess to value my peace of mind, maybe I'm actually valuing something else. And to start to watch your own behavior and what you're valuing in it, and then to adjust that towards what your vision of the good life is. If I was going to ask a question to try and think about, I mean, if you picture, do you ever seen Harry Potter where there's a mirror that he has to look at, and Dumbledore says to him that if you look into this mirror, it shows you the deepest desire of your heart or whatever.
And his mummy and daddy.
And he sees his family. But that type of vision of what your deepest desire really is something that will tell you about what you think the good life is. It'll reveal to you what you value most, and it might be something that you're like dreadfully off the mark with at the moment. Or maybe it's not that sophisticated. Maybe it's like an Andrew Tate, you're supposed to be on a jet ski and have a Bugatti and 10 supermodels or whatever. Maybe that's kind
Give
of
me my cigars, boy.
Yeah, but even if you look at that and the things that are in that, like that's like, okay, success is good, excellence is good, beauty is good,
Abusing women is good.
all those things are like there's goods there, but they're not really fully developed, you know what I mean? They're stuck on really shiny versions of better things.
It's the social media version, dare I say, not to like constantly bring it up, but it's like that desire. Interesting. But then if you're looking into that mirror and you are seeing the success, you're seeing the nice Lambos, you're seeing all of that sort of stuff, doesn't forget working on that part of like you need like a massive work ethic. You need to give up a lot of stuff. There is excess in getting there. But not just that, but also aren't we then still in that negative cycle and we're being sold the lifestyle of what we're seeing on social?
Yeah. So the thing about that, I think, is like when we're talking about like excess and deficiency and being like balanced person, I think to be a balanced person, you need a vision of who you could be. You need a vision of order that supersedes the conflicting parts of yourself.
Okay.
That we have all these different subsystems, we have different goals. One part of me wants to eat cake, the other bit wants to go to the gym, the other bit wants to live till I'm 70, the other bit wants to smoke cigarettes, There's all this competition kind of going on inside of you for what you actually do. So having a vision of who you could be that's inspiring, that might not be the perfect vision. Maybe it is the Andrew Tate Bugatti, yacht or whatever.
We really chose a bad example.
Now I'm kind of stuck on this one. But so even if it is, say, something like superficial, like sports cars or whatever, in a sense, you'll pursue that vision of the good. You'll have to, again, earn a certain amount of money, develop a certain amount of discipline. You'll have to sacrifice. You'll have to work hard. And on the journey to achieve that vision, you will reevaluate what you think is the good life. So the good life, I think, or your life, thinking about life as a journey is a journey to the good, but also how you understand the good. Because we're not perfect, wise people, you know what I mean? You think something's really good, you think you want to be the most popular, and then you become the most popular and you realize, I feel alone
and
in this way. You know
that.
what I mean? I feel like I'm not being I'm not being true to my own values. I'm behaving in ways that are self-destructive, that aren't okay. And then you realize, okay, so now I need another goal. And I know this one isn't the right one. So you think up a better one. And then pursuing that better one will help you think up another better one. And you get a clearer picture, I think, then of what a good life is for you. But I wouldn't settle for anybody else's
version of
it, because it is
yeah, I get you.
an individual life.
Yeah. It's, dare I say, kind of like what people talk about with vision boards or that sort of thing, where like you bring. I've never seen a vision board of just one single person.
Yeah.
Unless.
I don't know if you can manifest it, but like it definitely is. I think it's what grace is in religion fundamentally. Like the idea of grace, that you have a vision of the good that's perfect and beautiful and true, and that by pursuing it, you become like that. You become a better person. You become more beautiful. You become more good. You become more true. And that's kind of but until you specify that aim, you're just in chaos, basically, you know.
And where do you think our society is at now, or where has your research led you in regards to pinpointing, or dare I say defining, what the youth is like in regards to spirituality and religion?
Yeah.
Because obviously it's massively on the decline.
Yeah, they're not really.
It's not looking good.
Yeah, no, I mean, I've looked at some of the statistics, and they're in terms of Gen Z anyway, I'm thinking of Jean Twenga's book, iGen, where she did a lot of analysis of, predominantly in America, I don't know about in the UK and Ireland, but I assume it's kind of similar, that they're the least religious generation of all, including our generation as well, where it's been slowly declining. Usually most would say that they're spiritual in a way, but it's kind of vague and doesn't really have any.
A lot of people say they're spiritual, but it's like
there's no clear-cut constraints to it.
Yeah. Dare I say agnostic? I don't think that our generation is atheist.
No.
But I think it's very like.
Yeah.
Christian.
And I mean, I think the ancient Greeks didn't have a word for religion, which is interesting. They never actually thought of it as a thing that was separate from life. Like, really what religion is about values and about what's of the highest value in life. Like, that's God is the absolute value that organizes all of the relative values, which is Augustine's theory of it. So when we talk about values and what's important, you can't have a scientific theory of that. There's no method for, defining one valuable thing from another. And the science of perception has also come to the conclusion that perception is based on valuing and judgments, because we select things to focus on and we ignore other things, and we ignore most things. So I think for me, human beings are religious thinkers. Like, there's no way out of it. Like, we have that fundamental problem of choosing one thing over another and not being able to have both. So we have to prioritize one thing over another, and that creates a hierarchy of value and a question of what's at the top of the hierarchy and what's at the, how do I organize all of these different goods that are good things, but some are less important than others. And having no wisdom tradition, no spiritual tradition, leaves modern individuals very vulnerable to pathologies that could be avoided by having explicit value structures. Like, that's what Nietzsche said about the death of God. He was like, now we're going to have, what games are we going to invent, what cults, what apocalypses, what wars. And, we saw World War I and World War II after that in the early 1900s, where he said, we're going to put, you've gotten rid of God at the top spot, so now people are going to try and become God, and things are going to try and become God, and you're going to have this, like, things are going to get pretty weird. And I think we see that with AI as well, where people are like, we should build the robot God and worship it and it'll be great. So I think for a younger generation really needs a path to wisdom and a path to a spiritual tradition, but we really don't.
I think people don't want to choose though, because before, like the previous generations were kind of like, dare I say, our grandparents to our parents were very much like, I will slap you across the face if you think you even have a choice. Yeah. So it was like that sort of like conditioning, or like, you have no choice, you go on this path. Yeah. And then our parents, I'm generalizing here, of course, but our parents, dare I say, all baptized us. You know what I mean?
Well, I didn't get baptized.
Oh,
interestingly,
there you go.
Yeah, my parents were both raised Catholic, but then never.
And they wanted you
quit.
to have a choice, correct?
Yeah, they quit the business.
Yeah. But that's actually quite.
They cancelled their subscriptions.
I'm not saying it's rare, but I do think it's a little bit.
It was
for
rare
the
at the
90s.
time. It was about like 2% of the Irish population.
Yeah, exactly.
So it was pretty low.
Yeah. So they all baptized us, right? But then they were like, okay, you're going to do your Holy Communion, you're going to do your graduation, all that kind of shit. And then, like, lo and behold, at the age of 15, do you want to come to Mass with me? No? Okay, I'm not going to force you.
Yeah.
And then this is our generation. But then it's also like, of course, I have thankfully flirted with philosophy for 10 years now. So there are certain characteristics that I will be passing on to my children. But also, I don't want to go like, you know what? Fucking, like, I'm calling my baby Cap. Like, Cap, you're going to follow Stoicism. You're going to follow this. You're going to follow... I don't want to choose for them either.
Yeah.
But then that fucks them up. Like, either way,
but also, I think with children,
like.
we have this, I mean, this big block with, like, teaching them. They're kind of like, you feel like you're indoctrinating them into a worldview or something. But the thing is, without that type of training, you saddle them with the most complicated philosophical questions that have ever existed for thousands of years. And the reality is, nobody's equipped to solve them. It's taken generations and generations of people thinking very, like, really the smartest people that have ever lived, like, stacked on top of each other to kind of get closer to answering them. So I think without the tradition, because we don't like tradition these days, so that's kind of the problem, is like, we don't want them to have a tradition or something. But even our language is a tradition, our ideas of our tradition. Like, people probably talk about, like, potential on this show a lot, and reaching your potential, and, like, that's Aristotle. Like, Aristotle invented potential and actuality. Like, they're his concepts, but they're built into the language that we use and the way we think about them. So we take them for granted. But
so it's like ancient text, maybe.
Ancient, I mean, I think it just gives it's the frame that we see the world through. But we take it for granted that we made it up or that it just kind of appeared. But the reality is, without that, it's a very different kind of world. We're very culturally, determined creatures to a certain extent. Like, we're biological and then we're half cultural, but it's without that kind of tradition for young people. I think you see what you have today, which is this kind of just confusion. Like, people can't, like, metaphysics, like, how do you connect to reality? Like, what's your fundamental, what's fundamental reality or ontology? And, like, you can't just wander around going, like, what the fuck, how's this work? Like, I don't know, what I mean?
Whenever I get stuck in this, dare I say, rabbit hole or loophole, it's nearly a blessing and a curse. I love it, but then I'm like, no, man, like, listen, like, there's a deadline due or something like that. Like,
I have
you
to go
kind
to
of
the bathroom. Let's wrap
exactly.
this up.
And it's like you keep. That's probably one of the things with philosophers. It's like they're all like questioning themselves. I can't wait to see you when you're like 50, and like if you're still exactly. Because all my philosophy teachers were fucking gonzo. Like, I remember walking into this one lad, right, to give him an essay, and your man did not have a desk in his office.
Was he wearing pants?
He was just no. The first time, actually, when he walked in, he was gas. When he walked in, he was like, "I'll be honest with you guys, I don't want to give this lecture in here. I'd love to do it outside, but they don't allow me." And immediately, I knew, like, what we were signing up for.
Nice.
And I remember it being like the last 3 weeks of the semester. I'm really going off on a tangent here, but it was so good. So our final lecture, he made us watch a film that he was sleeping at the back in. So there was that. And then we were like, sir, what's the crack with the assignment? And he goes, whatever you want to write. And we're like, all right, like, choose your own title. Yeah, anything you want. He's like, anything. We're like, what style of referencing? He goes, the one with the ones in the brackets. So he didn't like Chicago style. He liked Harvard. And then I remember getting this assignment, handing it in. I'm like, where do I put it for you? And he had this armchair, full philosopher, like, stereotype. Armchair, books.
It's an armchair
everywhere,
philosopher.
And he's like, just leave it here.
Yeah.
And he just, like, unbothered. Oh, man.
Well, that's the modern, I mean, I'm pretty critical of this. I mean, I am technically an academic philosopher, but I'm going to give out about them for a second, because
give out about them.
Philosophy wasn't like that. Like, they weren't like that.
Oh, they're just a bunch of hippies from the 70s that got
they were
an
also
education.
out fighting battles, killing people, doing wild shit, running empires like Marcus Aurelius, fighting barbarians. You know what I mean? They lived very gnarly lives. And there's two strands of philosophy. Like, modern philosophy really originated with Descartes, and became very much about language and about the problem of perception and like how we can know things and epistemology. Whereas in ancient philosophy, it's all about how you should live your life. It's about your attitude. Like that's what Pierre Hadot's argument was. Like all of ancient philosophy was trying to get you the right attitude to life. Like, because you're going to live and you're going to think about life and you're going to look at it in a certain way, but you're doing it wrong. They're like, you're bad at it. So you need to get better at it. And we've got some ideas of how to do it. So they're like, the Stoics are very direct about stuff. They're like, don't do that, do this. You know what I mean? You know, don't worry about the opinions of other people. Value your own character. Your character is more important. You know what I mean? The opinions will change. If you ruin your character, you're going to really suffer. So they're more like coaches or like spiritual kind of, you know, like spiritual martial art coaches that are like, you know, get your head in the game.
But no.
But modern philosophy is like, oh, we can be
like,
anything.
can I look more hipster than Einstein?
Yeah, like, no. Like, do the push-ups, sort yourself out. I have a very dim opinion. I hate French philosophers, are my big bugaboo. Like, I'd love to go back in time and like beat up Jean-Paul Sartre.
Oh yeah,
but
that's fair. That's completely fair.
Yeah, I just think they've ruined, like they've just excused a lot of nihilism, a lot of despair, a lot of alienation, and ultimately given up their responsibility.
There's a little bit of
people,
like, yeah, there is that pompous.
It's just intellectual, you know, masturbation. Pardon the language.
But look, we're in Europa after all.
Yes, well,
You
technically.
know, for now. I have a question for you, actually, because I know you brought him up, right?
Yeah.
Considering... What?
Oh, sorry, I thought you meant Jean-Paul Sartre.
Yeah.
I do hate
So,
him.
considering what you just said there, right, about these philosophers and stuff, when Andrew Tate came along, and he's like a kickboxing champion, he's talking about hard work, success, and all of that.
He's a bad philosopher, though, isn't he?
Yeah. We're, like, from your perspective anyways, coming from, like, the social media scene and stuff, were you somewhat... dare I say, disappointed of, oh man, you could have been so good.
No, I mean, I don't know. I
think
wouldn't read
disappointed
any of
is
his
too
great
extreme.
works or anything. Like, you know what I mean?
Did
He
you not
hasn't,
sign up for Hustlers University?
Yeah, no, I kind of wasn't. I mean, and also kickboxing is questionable at best. Like, you know, if he was a great Muay Thai fighter, maybe, but like,
okay.
I'm gonna get beaten up now.
Yeah,
by some
you're gonna get
kickboxers.
beaten
But,
up for that.
No, I didn't. I'm not. I think it was kind of inevitable that there'd be more Andrew Tates and whatever. Some people like him. You know, he says some good stuff about hard work and about fighting and stuff and about, you know, courage and whatnot. But he can be, you know, a broken clock is right twice a day. Like, he's not a good. I don't think he's a good philosopher. I don't think he's really very insightful. Like, people always compare him to Jordan Peterson. I'm like, if you read Jordan Peterson's first book, Maps of Meaning, that is a work of genius. Like,
No
it
one
is
ever talks about that book.
staggeringly
I've never
brilliant.
heard it.
Like,
Maps of Meaning.
his work on mythology is groundbreaking. Like, I think it's a way into, again, mythology and ancient thinking for modern people that solves the meaning crisis. Like, and that's why his work has been so powerful, I think, in a lot of ways, is it's based on that very solid, rigorous foundation. Like, so, I mean, the book is like line by line, like just laying down, it's something like 1,000 pages or whatever, and it's brilliant. Like, but Andrew Tate has done none of that. Like, he's done fuck all, you know what I mean? So he's kind of just shooting from the hip and saying, you know, do this, do that, and he might be catching some people's eyes because of that. But I think ultimately the job of this kind of thing, you need somebody that's taking it really seriously, like somebody who's really invested in that pursuit.
Without talking about Andrew Tate now, and let's dive into Jordan Peterson, because unfortunately he has ended up, he became a polarizing figure.
Yeah, big time.
And in my opinion, I do think that social media fame and the clips and the short form content has somewhat ruined him. Sometimes the tweets that he has come out with himself,
Haven't been too good. Like.
I think it's a little bit. I don't want to also just put you constantly under the bus, but in my case, anyways, it's like, I think with Jordan Peterson, it's a little bit unfortunate where now it's kind of going very like man, and the woman is. It's not even the problem, but it's getting manipulated in such a way where like women are being targeted and are becoming the problem, you know? And it's a little bit sad with the thing where he got cancelled on Twitter of the like not beautiful thing or whatever. It's like, fuck, why did you have to say that, man?
Yeah, I
You
mean,
know?
I don't that was anybody
That wasn't sound.
appreciated that.
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, there's
And his
Jordan's a
health,
complicated.
obviously.
He's a complicated guy. Like
Yeah.
he's and people talk about like the two Jordans of the culture warrior Jordan and then the psychologist who was very good at mythology and his work there. And I don't know, he's in
Interesting.
a complicated position with 6 million followers or whatever, and I don't really presume to know what's going on there, his allegiances, but I do
Yeah.
know his early work there is very, very valuable, like immensely so.
Do you think it's sad though that like in order for his work to get popular, he needed to insert himself in the culture war? Like,
Yeah, I think, well, he was popular I mean, there was a TV show made in Canada about Maps of Meaning, the initial book.
Okay.
And if you watch his early lectures, like the Maps of Meaning lectures and the Personality and its Transformations lectures, those ones were pretty popular online. Obviously, the culture war stuff, like, just took over to a certain extent. But
it's easier for people to talk about.
it's easier. It becomes, there's good sound bites and stuff. And
Yeah.
but it's still interesting because if you go on some of his videos, like the ones on the Maps of Meaning ones, some of them have 1 million views, and he's talking about very esoteric, very kind of like deep depth psychology on like Carl Jung and this kind of work of the unconscious and narrative and mythologies and stuff that's really like he's popularized a lot of it. And for me, Peterson came in a time in my life when I really needed like a role model. I needed somebody who came along and said, who could justify order and living an ordered life and living a life that was taking responsibility for yourself, because I wasn't doing that. And so that was super transformative for me. And I know a lot of young guys that were on bad paths, that would have been on drugs, that would have been suicidal, that would have been, in the dark forest, and his work helped them to become better. So I think as much as there is, like now there's so much nonsense and the Andrew Tate stuff and that kind of like, the toxic kind of side of things, but also there's a huge amount of good that personally for me was so transformative and is something which I appreciate. Like,
Did you ever get caught? How old were you at the time when Jordan Peterson?
I was like 22, 23.
Was there, now in hindsight, did you kind of see yourself nearly get sucked into a red pill hole? Because I've heard a lot of guys
really, yeah, I don't
kind of
know.
talk
I mean,
about it.
yeah, a red pill hole. No, like I didn't hate women or
No.
we
But
kinda
like basically,
didn't go
a
down
lot
that
of
road,
guys
alright.
kind of talk about how they tried to change their life. They were at that state.
Yeah.
They started off with like good intentions and all this sort of stuff.
Yeah.
But then, I don't want to sound cheesy, but we are kind of like connecting the dots here. But then the excess of that content consumption without the work ended up like slowly getting sucked into a red pill hole for 1.5 years. And then you're going, oh, women are like staying away from me. I've ruined like friendships, like that sort of thing, where it's like you kind of get to a point sometimes where like you self-reflect and you're like, oh, something has to change here.
Yeah.
So then you like filter out the good and all that kind of stuff. But did you kind of see where someone can get sucked into?
Well,
with the wrong-
I don't know up here because his whole shtick essentially is that you should find a long-term partner, get married, and have
And wear a
like
suit
a
every day.
relationship that
and have
is
babies at
successful.
21.
Yeah, but also like don't lie, don't manipulate people, don't cheat on your partner, don't look at them as like they're an object or categorize them too much so that they become a non-existent person. Like to realize that your partner is always more complicated than what you think they are. So to be endlessly kind of re-engaging with them and honorable in a sense, which has helped me to have a stable long-term relationship. So with him, I don't really see that.
Yeah.
But with other ones, yeah, I'm sure there's millions of these kind of like the pickup artist thing where it's just like you're trying to get another girl after another girl and you're like, how many do you need? Like, where is this going to end? You know what I mean? Like, are you just going to keep doing this forever? Or I think that end of things, yeah, it's just like you could get stuck in that pretty bad.
100%. Let's talk a little bit about your play now.
Yeah.
The reason why you're here after all.
For sure.
Waiting for the Offo.
Waiting for the Offo, yeah. It's going to be...
Finally, it's been a long time coming.
5 years, like... yeah.
What's that like? That tested your patience.
That tested me big time. I had plenty of opportunities to quit, but didn't. 'Cause
Really?
thought, there was something weird, and the director as well, because the director Colin McIver, who's brilliant and been my partner in crime for the whole thing, like he had plenty of opportunities to quit as well because we were doing it for so long, but we felt that there was something really important about it, so we were like, we got to just keep going to actually get it done. Because I wrote it in 2018 as part of my master's, and then we entered it for the 2020 Fringe Festival. It was the first time it got into the Fringe Festival in Dublin, and then this thing COVID-19 happened. You might have heard of it.
This podcast is going to get flagged for all the wrong things. We've got COVID, Andrew Tate,
COVID-19 ruined my play.
Jordan Peterson.
Yeah, no, COVID was an inside job to ruin my play. But so that got cancelled. So we got into the Fringe Lab 50, where they gave us like additional resources to kind of rehearse the play and do it, and we've been trying to do it ever since, essentially.
And what happened?
Like just because of COVID, basically theatre was just destroyed for several years.
2020 and 21. I'm
Unfortunately, it just didn't bounce back really until, and then in 2022, and then it was going to be in the Mac in Belfast, and then that fell through, and then we were basically going to put it on in Dublin because it's a very Dublin play, so it's about young millennials. A lot of what we've been talking about really being like early kind of 20s, like not quite an adult but not quite out of the session lifestyle, and like really stuck in that liminal kind of space, and so I'm delighted to be able to actually do it finally.
Talk a little bit more about the play, because obviously you saw something in it enough to stick to it for 5 years.
No, I really because I had plenty of opportunities to quit on it. I've done about probably 47 drafts at this point, and thrown it in the bin numerous times. Of just like actually just said no more, and then write it again, like. And then you just and then pick it back up. What was that line? Like, that one was
why
funny.
did I not number the pages?
God damn it, I can't remember. But it was. I think it's significant because, for me, growing up, I suppose, getting sucked into the session and getting kind of stuck in that lifestyle, and all my friends were kind of doing it, and it became very normal, and it became a very normal life, and it is a normal life for a lot of people in Dublin, culturally, I think. But also there's a new kind of culture emerging where people are like worrying about their health more. They're maybe quitting drinking. There's kind of a lot of different things going on, and so I feel like this play has something to say about that, and to contribute something that can help us kind of reflect on. And of course, the theme of waiting is pretty pertinent for like the fact that we've been waiting for 2.5 years or whatever to reopen and start life again. But
what's rehearsals like at the moment?
Yeah, good. We had the first rehearsed reading in the new theatre. So the play's going to be on in the new theatre July 4th to July 8th. The new theatre website has all the details and tickets and whatnot. But it's going to be, we had like our first rehearsal in the room 2 weeks ago, and it was really good. Like, our actors are top quality. Like, we have Cillian Lenihan's playing the main role. Cillian's been in tons of, he was in The Lady in the Wall, the recent Paramount Pictures TV show, I think, and he's been in Martin McDonagh's The Lieutenant of Binashir. Lots of like big stuff, man. He's so talented. Like, Liam Bigsby alongside him as well, who's like great theatre actor, like really experienced, also very funny, like. And then Hazel Clifford, who's fantastic, and Terry O'Neill, who's in Michael Inside and Love Hate, a couple other ones. So we have like an outrageously good cast for such a small production.
And is this really theatre lucky. Like there's a few seats in there, right? Because I know you were saying it's quite small. How many seats?
It's like 66.
Okay.
I think.
Yeah. It's not like super intimate.
No, it's like... I mean, small. It's nice. It's in the new theatre. So it's in the back of Connolly Books in the bookshop, and they have a theatre in there, so it's quite atmospheric.
It's cute.
Yeah, it's cool. Yeah. The Saturday night one's sold out now, and there's not that many left for the weekend, but there's still like the opening night.
Slowly.
So
I'm so excited for it. Like, it's so hard. I was telling you this before, but for the sake of the audience, I read the script. Which camera am I on? Like, it's in the middle one. Okay, because it's shit. I read the script, folks.
Don't give it away, please.
Yeah. It's so hard not to give it away, but also I was like, no, this is so good. I don't want to ruin it for myself. So I was just like skimming through everything, just like, fuck this, So yeah, no, it's a crazy work and it's super relevant.
Yeah, it's really come together, and it really became something like to the point now where it feels almost complete. Even when I was doing a writing weekend there with the director and the producer, and we were kind of sitting there going, whoa, this is going to be really special. Like this is, we even kind of putting it all to pieces together, we were kind of like, wow, this is, you know, more than we had expected. Like, I guess we had so long to do it, it couldn't be shit. Like, you know what I mean?
You
It would be really bad if it was, but
you just get like 2 stars or
Yeah,
something like
this
yeah.
sucks.
Oh fuck, man. But yeah, no, that is very true. And also, I think it's just really exciting to see you in a different space as well, because I feel like everyone who talks about you or knows about you, it's the podcast, it's it's the philosophy, it's the essays.
Definitely.
So obviously this is writing, but it's completely like it's a different space. And I think that's the beautiful thing of the fact that you pursued creative writing as a master's degree.
Yeah.
Is just like it opens up opportunities for you because you did something you liked.
Yeah. Yeah.
And you you carried on with that hard work. As you said, plenty of opportunities
so
to quit.
damn long, but
But yeah, no, it's like you chased what you were curious about, and then you're like, you know what, this deserves something more special. I'm gonna like not even like hop out or get out of the culture war or anything, but you're doing it like you're pursuing a different route that not that many people
but I
talk
think
about.
for me the writing is philosophy in a way.
Yeah.
Like it's the same thing. It's really and like Plato was a playwright before he became a philosopher.
Yeah,
there's
so
a
you
lot
are
of
Plato.
good ones. I'm trying, man,
Yeah.
but he's so much better. Definitely not quite at that standard.
You
but
do have quite a philosopher name, though. You know that?
yeah, sound. People say it's like a golfer. But
No, Mahon McCann. It's like
good alliteration.
like think about that. Like put you're dead now. You know, it's 2020. Like it's 2,250, right?
That'll be all right.
You know what I mean?
Good
It's
innings.
like you're gonna have your Muay Thai shoulders on, like a little like soldier like looking
My
thing.
God.
You know, God knows where the fuck like which
Yeah,
university
yeah.
you're gonna be at, and it's like Man McCann
They'll
was
have
a
me on
playwright.
display in
Yeah,
the foyer.
exactly.
Yeah.
Yeah, you'll be a saint.
But I think this is like this play. I'm going to do more plays and do more stuff.
Hell
I'd
yeah.
really love to turn it into a TV show. So I'm manifesting that at the moment. I think it
believe
would be
in
a
that
great
stuff?
like half an hour. No,
Yeah.
not really. But no, that's not true.
Carry on.
I think it'd be, and I just think culturally now I think Ireland's in a strange kind of place where like the old Irish idea is like I think if you had a sold 0-0 Guinness 10 years ago it would have failed miserably. Like I feel like everybody would have hated it. Like I think there's kind of a sea change a little bit on the session. Like people are kind of going, I don't want to ruin
Yeah.
myself. And you know, how can we not lose the crack and still, you know, it's such a part of the Irish identity, having a good time, sessioning, like it's really interwoven with who we are. So I think this play is very much about that conflict of like
Yeah.
moving on,
It's like
growing
you're
up,
parting ways with it.
partying. Yeah, no, it has.
yeah.
I've been living on the session writing this play for like
Yeah,
5
yeah,
years, but
without
I've quit
session.
drinking. Like,
yeah. How long have you been?
like 16 months now.
Okay.
This is-
So
yeah,
what the fuck is that? In
year
like,
and a half. I
Okay, there
suppose.
you go.
Yeah.
You're gonna be one of those fucking people. Like, you're gonna be those people that like when they have kids, it's like they're 14 months,
7 days, 6 hours.
7 days.
I could probably calculate the
16
hours
months.
before. Yeah.
I am 4 months. Yeah.
Yeah, nice.
I got alcohol poisoning on on Stephen's Day. Sorry, guys.
Perfect day for it.
Yeah. So I've been sober since. Interesting.
Yeah. And you see, back in the day, you would have got alcohol poison. You would have gone drinking the next day.
True.
Get back up.
There you
But
go.
I think people are,
Zero
it's
alcohol
changed.
is where it's at for people that like are
Yep.
toying with the idea. Do you drink zero alcohol?
Yeah, I drink 0-0s.
It
Good
really
illusion,
helps.
like definitely
Oh my God.
simulating. pints.
Pour it and like get rid of the label and you
Just pretend.
just like
Yeah.
and then you'll forget in a little bit.
Yeah.
That's basically it. No, it's super handy.
Yeah, I think it's a really interesting kind of change, to be honest. And it seems like even younger people are like drinking less, which maybe is a good thing, maybe it's a bad thing, maybe they're having less crack. I don't
Maybe
really
it's
know.
social media.
Maybe it's social media. But yeah, I think for the Irish culture, like drinking is a massive thing, and it can become pretty pathological at times. And so maybe getting a bit past that and finding other things would be, you know,
It.
positive for people.
Okay.
But
Yeah.
I don't know.
What website can they buy the tickets at?
You can find it on either through my Instagram or on the New Theatre. So if you go to the New Theatre website, they have
Waiting for
tickets
the
there.
Offo.
Waiting for the Offo.
There you go.
Based on Waiting for Godot, if you know that one.
Any
Loosely inspired by.
Any parting word of advice for these new philosophers?
New philosophers, man.
Yeah. We
that's
got
what I'm talking
them.
about. I'd just be happy if there are
they're
new
probably
philosophers.
mind fucked at this point.
Yeah, I mean, that was pretty heavy going. Don't buy Hustlers Universe. No. It's a rip. I think, I mean, philosopher means lover of wisdom. Philosophia. So really what philosophy is about is loving the wisdom that you don't have. So it's about learning. It's about being curious. Plato said philosophy begins in wonder. So I think pay attention to what you wonder about. Pay attention to what you're interested in. And try and make as much of your life about that as possible. Expand yourself into all these areas and face the challenges that come from going into them. And that will make you more complete and satisfied as a person, I think.
Yeah.
And that's what philosophy is about, man.
And end up on the path for the good life, or to the good life, whatever that is.
On the good life, like for the podcast, or
no, just for them. Like start with wondering, and then you end up on that.
Yeah, think about what a good
Harry
life
Potter
means.
memory.
It's something I really, because I just had no plans when I was younger, man. Never
You're
set
right.
goals at all. I was like, goals suck. Goals are for losers. Like,
Goals.
you know?
Yeah, man. What
And
the
that was a
fuck?
bad idea.
Am I a pussy?
Yeah,
Like?
I was wrong.
Yeah, that's gay, man.
Should definitely think about that.
Set a few goals. And also, don't overdo the goals either, or else you'll end up
Yeah,
burnt
don't set
out.
no goals.
No goals. Just 2 goals, maybe.
Yeah, goalless life.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Ugh. I remember, like, when I was, how old? 18 or something, and it was in philosophy class, and there was a lecturer just explaining the different types of philosophies or something. And it was like, do you want to be a sad human, or do you want to be a happy pig? That was like, I don't know, man, like a happy pig sounds fun, no?
Sounds pretty chill.
And then it's like, no, but that's the wrong answer, because you should always crave like your consciousness and all that kind of stuff. And I'm like, I don't know, mate, like a happy pig, you know,
Happy
just
Pig's pretty fun.
happy pig is pretty fun. But yeah, like after that question and a few other where we had to write an essay explaining God, I was just like, this is so fucked up. I love it.
What did you write in the essay?
So there was Descartes' theory of...
Not Descartes, another French guy, man.
Oh, yeah.
The French
I'm
need to
pretty
stop,
sure it
like-
was Descartes though, but like I'm trying to remember it so hard, but it was just like, you know, that theory where I am questioning God and I can't think of anything perfect, therefore how is the thought like if I can't think of anything else that exists around me, but I know what perfect means, therefore God put that there for me. So there was that. Then there was, I forgot the name, there was John Locke with the blank slate theory, and then there was your man.
Also wrong, but
Yeah, look, as in, this was 2000
John
and
Locke.
fucking 14, like
Not
13,
right.
14. And then there was,
Evolution.
who's the guy that basically was the starter to what physics is now with atoms and stuff,
Newton,
like
was
the...
it? Isaac Newton.
No. It was of the little particles that if you keep...
Oh,
have
Leibniz, monad.
yeah, something like that, where they all have souls in them.
Yeah, the monad.
then-
It's like a window. of
Monads,
infinite-
there you go,
yeah.
that's it. I remember the monads.
Yeah, Leibniz, a pretty cool guy. But
That one was fucking...
he's a bit of a G.
Yeah. He started it all. So yeah, like if everything that I fucking am today, I owe it to philosophy, and that's just like the basic like starting point.
Yeah,
And I think like for you as well,
100%, definitely.
that's it.
Get as much philosophy into you as you can.
Nico McCann ethics is
Parting
very
words.
good though.
For real.
Marcus Aurelius is the G Meditations. Ciao.
Yep.
Thank you for watching or listening.
Whoa.
And I'm assuming it's only that camera because technical difficulty. Yeah, that's okay. That's okay.
Hey, at least
Yeah,
recorded.
that's
like.
all right. We don't give up here. It's okay. I'll quit in 5 years' time. Ciao. See you. Bye.